Our chapel speaker, Mr. John Vicary, is the Senior Vice President of the Southern Division of Young Life. Young Life, which was founded by one of our graduates, Jim Rayburn, in 1941, is committed to making an impact on kids' lives and preparing them for the future by going where kids are, loving them unconditionally, earning the right to be heard, and communicating God's love in terms that they can understand. Young Life is active in all 50 states, more than 45 different countries, reaching an estimated 1 million teenagers annually. John's been on staff with Young Life for 24 years, working in Waco, Texas, Oklahoma City, and Brentwood, Tennessee. He studied at Baylor University and Fuller Theological Seminary. Married to Carol, they live in Brentwood, Tennessee, and have 3 children, JC, Michael, and Clark. So without any more ado, let's listen to Mr. John Vicary and give him a good Dallas Seminary welcome.
Well, good morning. I passed a couple students, don't know who you are, and you didn't know I was there, but you were looking at the board, and someone looked at the chapel thing and said, "Is this going to be any good?" And I wanted to lean in and said, "I have no idea." You know? But I know I'm supposed to say this, but I am truly honored to be with you. For lots of reasons, I'm honored and I'm extremely grateful. But when I realized that Young Life began because of the influence of Dallas Seminary, because of Dr. Chafer himself, I'm so grateful that the vision and passion of Young Life that began in the heart of Jim Rayburn really was planted there, many people say, by Dr. Chafer. In fact, Bob Mitchell, one of our former presidents who was from Dallas, said he's not going to be surprised if when he gets to heaven, he discovers the person responsible for starting Young Life was not Jim Rayburn, but was Dr. Chafer. So to be in this building with you is truly an honor. I'm also grateful for the impact that you have had upon me directly. The 2 of the men I would say have influenced me the most in my spiritual life and my understanding of ministry have both been graduates of Dallas Seminary. I have to admit, there have been times I've wanted to be you. It's happened every time I hear Dr. Hendricks speak. He's come and taught our staff many times to open the scriptures, as you know, and he just teaches in a way that you just think, you know what, I'm going to go home, I'm going to tell my wife and my kids we're moving to Dallas. I'm going to be a student. I'm just going to sit in this class and soak it all in. And so I hope you have that sense this morning. I know there are rigors of study. You pay a great price to be here. But that you would soak in all that God gives you through the wonderful teaching of people like Dr. Hendricks. So I'm grateful for all those reasons and many more to be with you this morning. It's also good to be back in Texas. I came here in 1976 to be a freshman at Baylor University. I spent 10 years in Waco, not all going to college, but 10 years there, 4 in college, and then I began the ministry with Young Life in Waco. My last 3 years there were my first 3 years of marriage. It's where we had our first child. JC's 18 now. He still is proud to say I'm a Texan. And so I wish I could bring them back. I wish you could see them and meet them and know on those days when I wonder if the love of God is real for me, I have to look no further than my wife and my 3 children to see He has given more than I could ever have asked or imagined in them. And so I'm a blessed man. If you spent much time with my family, you discover we laugh a lot. And the times we laugh the most is because something one of our kids will say. It was Art Linklater and Bill Cosby who hosted shows about that premise, that kids say the funniest things. And I found that still is true. In fact, I found it true in a test that was given to some second graders. I'd like to give you that test this morning. I know chapel's not supposed to be a test, but I promise this one will be easy. It'll be your easiest test all year. They were given a fill-in-the-blank test. They were given the first half of a famous saying and asked to complete the saying. I'll read the first half, give you a chance to give the right answer, and I'll tell you some of the answers they gave. If at first you don't succeed, no, first you don't succeed, you will be fired. It's a Donald Trump philosophy of success. It's better safe than, no, better safe than to punch a 5th grader. It's always quietest before, nope, always quietest before the hyenas come. Hard to argue with that. Cats away. No, cats away, dogs in charge. Never underestimate. Power of a woman? No, never underestimate when your dad is asleep. Last two, my favorites. Never put off until tomorrow. No, never put off until tomorrow what you can buy with a credit card. My personal favorite, a bird in the hand. That's a different bird. Bird in the hand pecks, 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 and pecks until your hand's gone. It is funny to hear the answers kids gave to those questions, yet what we find not funny at all, in fact tragic, are the answers teenagers are giving to questions they face today. Would you go back in time with me for a minute? Would you remember what it's like to be a teenager? It's a short stretch for some of us. It's a long stretch for others. I'm in the long stretch category. But would you remember what it's like? More importantly, would you listen to what it's like today to be a teenager? Some of the questions they have to face day after day. Here's some of the questions. Will I drink? It's always been part of adolescence. Today, almost 80% of all high school kids will say yes before they graduate. Half drink on a regular basis by their senior year. 1 out of 4 will become chemically dependent. Part of being a kid, yes. Number 1 cause of death among teenagers, alcohol-related accidents. Will I have sex? It's always been part of adolescence. But you know, the question today is changing. Not if, but when. And the average age is becoming younger and younger. Almost half of all kids, by the time they graduate, will say yes. 1 out of 10 girls will become pregnant. 40% will choose to have an abortion. It's just a sign of our times, yes. But we haven't even touched on all the other messages that bombard kids today. From music to television to movies to the internet to pornography at the push of a button. They're bombarded by this message. Will my parents stay together? Another sign of our times. Almost half, by the time they graduate, will watch their mom and dad separate or divorce. Again, it's just a statistic that we're aware of. And it becomes so much more when you realize the impact on a person you've grown to love. Tad, a high school boy, came to Young Life several years ago. He came every week. He was one of those life of the party kind of guys. He answered that first question, will I drink? Yes, as often as I can, as much as I can. I'm sure Tad was an alcoholic long before he got to his senior year in high school. But he had this charm about him, this kind of sparkle that just kind of drew you to him. And so I saw him one night at Young Life, and he didn't seem his normal self. I said, Chad, what's wrong? Well, my parents told me tonight they're getting a divorce. Tad, I'm really sorry. Yeah, what's worse is they made me stand between them and decide which one I wanted to live with now. You know, kids shouldn't have to answer questions like that, but far too many of them are. Will I be safe? There's a hot topic today. Security, protection, terrorism. It's in all the headlines. It was in all the election campaigns. You know, kids are asking it every day. I don't remember asking that question. Is it safe for me to go to the football game this weekend? Is it safe for me to go to the mall? Is it safe for me to walk on the streets of my neighborhood? Is it safe for me to go to my school today? It became much more than just a popular topic when my oldest son came back from middle school a few years ago. He said, we had a drill at school today. We said, well, was it a fire drill? No. Was it a tornado drill? No. This one was different. Well, what was it? It was some kind of drill that means there's some danger in the school. It's a different kind of alarm that goes off. Well, what are you supposed to do? Well, we were trained to go, if we're in the classroom, to go get in the corner of the classroom and huddle down there in the corner until someone tells us if it's a drill or not. If it's not a drill, they'll tell us if the danger's outside the school or inside the school. So a few days later, they tested it, the alarm went off, and I was walking down the hall, and I just went to the nearest room. I huddled in the corner with some friends of mine, and we waited. And suddenly, it changed everything for me. To see this image of my son, my little boy, in the corner waiting to see, is this a drill? Or is there real danger? There are kids waking up every day and it's no drill. They're wondering, will I be safe today? Will I fit in or belong? It's always been a part of adolescence. You know, some kids are so desperate to belong, they're doing things that are costing them their very lives. Memphis, Tennessee, a 14-year-old boy was beaten to death in the bathroom of his high school just a few weeks ago. As they uncovered the details, as they investigated, they found out it was a gang initiation. To be part of this gang meant you had to be jumped into it. You had to submit to being beaten up to become a part of the gang. And the beating got much more severe than they intended, and the boy died. How desperate do you have to be to want to be a part of a group to say, you can beat me up just so I can be part of your group? Young Life's not in that high school. We want to get there as fast as we can. But I know there are people that love Jesus around that school. I know there are churches around that school. You think it'd have made a difference if he'd have known? You can come be involved here for nothing. And if he knew, why didn't it make a difference? Last few questions. Does anybody care about me? A poll at a Fort Worth high school asked the question, what's the biggest problem you face? Number one answer, loneliness. All the business, all the activity, if you look at them, you'd never guess that beneath the surface is this growing desperation because they're so lonely. All the things the world has offered to be a substitute for real relationships, the hours they spend in front of the computer screen only leaves them more lonely. And the loneliness becomes despair. They ask this last question, the most frightening of all. Is there any reason for me to live one more day? There are kids tonight who in Dallas will ask that question. Should tomorrow be my last day? Will anybody even notice if I'm gone? Well, the question I want to try to answer this morning is, what is young life? And how do we help kids find answers, or more important, the answer to the questions they face? To do so, I've chosen a passage in the Gospel of Mark. I'd like you to look at it with me. It will not be a detailed study. We'll not talk much about the history or the original language. You'll be greatly disappointed if that's what you're expecting this morning. But I want to invite you to come with me, to come together on a trip with Jesus and his disciples, a very quick trip to a place no one wanted to go, to meet a person no one wanted to meet, and to find out no one wanted them to stay there. It's in Mark 5. If you know Mark 4, the end of Mark 4, it's a time when Jesus says to his disciples, let's get in the boat and go over to the other side of the lake. He doesn't tell them where they're going. But if you remember, it's the journey that they're on when the storm hits. And their faith disappears, and they're scared for their lives, and they wake him up and say, don't you care that we're drowning? And he calms the storm and he says, what happened to your faith? Why are you so afraid? He says they were terrified. Mark 5 is where they were going. It's the destination. Listen to where they ended up. And they went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. You do much study, you do much research, you'll find out this was not a vacation destination for the Jews. No one would choose to go to this place. It was not comfortable or familiar or safe. It was a mixed culture. It was not just across the lake, it was across the tracks. Nobody'd ever go there. Maybe it's why Jesus didn't say, we're going to go to the region of the Gerasenes. It's interesting, God leads us to places we might not choose to go if we knew that's where he was taking us. Interesting that you follow the life of Jesus and he always shows up in places nobody else would choose to be. Something about the heart of God. He's here on this day, in this place. It's a quick trip. It's been Young Life's privilege for 63 years to go to places nobody wants to go. To find ourselves showing up at high schools and middle schools all over the world. Thousands of schools we get the privilege to walk into. Not a lot of adults are signing up to go spend their free time at high schools and middle schools. It's not a vacation destination. It's been our great privilege because of who we get to meet when we go there. Watch who Jesus meets. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an evil spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he'd often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and he broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself. I don't understand much of this man's issues and struggles. I can't explain what it means to be possessed and controlled by all these evil forces and demons. But I do know a few things about the man that are obvious. He had no home. He lived in the tombs. His address was a cemetery. He had no family. He lived alone. He'd been disowned, abandoned, forgotten by his family. He was proof that society's best efforts had failed him. An embarrassment to the community. And lastly, he was in such pain, he cried out night and day. It's a picture of far too many kids. There are far too many kids who have no home. I'm not talking about the number of kids who are actually kicked out of their house, have no place to live. There are too many of those, but there are even more who live in a place they call home. But if you and I spent time with them in it, it'd be as lifeless as that cemetery. And there are too many kids who don't have a family. I'm not talking about kids who've been actually kicked out of their families, who have nobody to call their mom or their dad. There are a lot of those. There are so many others, far too many, who live in a unit called a family, but it's not a family. Their mom and dad have given up their responsibility to raise them. They're too busy. They're too preoccupied. They're hoping somebody else will raise their kids. And the sad thing is, somebody else is. They're kids who are proof that society's best efforts have failed them. Our attempts to subdue and control and keep them quiet and put them over there in buildings where they don't bother us has not worked. We've failed them. And lastly, there are far too many kids that cry out night and day because the pain's just too great. You can hear it if you listen close enough. You won't see it at first, but it's obvious. And sometimes the pain is so great they can't help themselves. But to do just what this man did, they cut themselves. I can't imagine pain like that, but I've seen the forearms of kids who are covered with scars, some old and some brand new. Because they feel so much pain inside, they have to just inflict pain on themselves physically to express it. Again, I don't understand pain like that, but God does. In Exodus 3, when he sends Moses, he says, "I'm sending you because I've heard the cries of my children." He still does. It's been Young Life's privilege to be sent by God because he's heard the cries of his children, to walk among kids without home, without families, failed by the society, and crying out for help. Watch what happens when he sees Jesus. Because when he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? Swear to God that you won't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you evil spirit." Our target audience in Young Life are kids who are unchurched. There are far too many of them. The great majority of kids in our world will not go to church. They're disinterested. They've decided it has nothing to do with life as they want to live it. You know what we discovered? When they get a glimpse of who God is, they do the same thing this man did. They come running. There's a place in their heart like yours and mine that wants to know who God is, to see for themselves, and they come running. But they came with the same distortions this man had. Notice he gets the name right. Jesus, Son of the Most High God. We have kids all over the world, especially in the South, who know all the right things about God. They could tell you the right names. They've seen the Passion. Jesus, Son of the Most High God, but clueless about who God is. Are you here to torture me? Kids are that way today. They may know the right names, but they think somehow God is about torturing them, condemning them. He came just to squeeze all the life out of them. It's been our privilege in Young Life for 63 years to say that's not who God is. Look, the visible expression of the invisible God, Jesus Christ, the one who did not come to condemn. When they see him, they run even faster. And then Jesus asked this question. It's the only time I can find Jesus asking someone this simple question. He asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. What is your name? You see, Jesus didn't see him as a societal problem. He didn't see him as a force to be subdued. He saw him as a person created with an identity. And he asked him, "Do you know who you are? Who are you?" He proves he doesn't know by his answer. "My name is Legion." He defines himself by the forces that control him. Now, I wonder what answer you'd get if you walked among the high schools and middle schools around Dallas and you said to kids you meet, "What's your name?" Not just your given name, but who are you? You know what you'd hear if they're honest? "I'm athletics. I'm popularity." I'm pornography. I'm a sexual abuse victim. I'm most likely to succeed. I'm never amount to anything. I'm forgotten. I'm abandoned. I'm depression. That's how they'd answer. It's been Young Life's privilege for 63 years to go be with kids and build relationships with them by asking them their name. The foundation of Young Life is to build relationships with kids, to prove to them there are people who care. And more importantly, there's a God who cares and knows your name, knows why you were created. There are 3,000 staff in Young Life across the world. Last year, that meant those 3,000 staff, 20,000 volunteers, knew 1 million kids' names. That sounds like a lot. It's not near enough. And what happens next, I'd almost want to skip this part because I don't get this. Listen to what happens. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, "Send us among the pigs, allow us to go into them." You know, I have to ask the question, what would be attractive about inhabiting a pig? You know, I don't get that. I mean, demons weren't just deceived, they're incredibly stupid. Let's inhabit those pigs. So he gives them permission. The evil spirits come out and went into the pigs. And the herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. Again, somehow as Jesus freed this man from all those evil forces and put him into the pigs couldn't take it. They went right off a cliff. I wonder how long we'd last if all of the forces upon kids today, all the evil trying to destroy them was put upon us. I don't think we could walk a mile in their shoes. I think we'd look for the nearest cliff. News spread, as you can imagine, quickly. Those tending the pigs, they'd be called pig tenders. Not as appetizing as chicken tenders, by the way. I'm sorry, that's bad, wasn't it? Yeah. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. And when they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, dressed, and in his right mind. And they were afraid. And those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man. They told him about the pigs as well. As you can imagine, they couldn't wait to see this one for themselves. You're not going to believe it. Come see the man who used to run through the tomb screaming day and night. And they got there, and there he was sitting. He'd never sat before, never been subdued before. Chains, irons couldn't control him. And now he is settled and calmed and sitting at the feet of Jesus. And he's dressed. And he's in his right mind. And you love to know his answer to the question then, who are you? I think he'd get it right if he was asked that time. Who are you? And you would think, because it's been our privilege to watch this for 63 years, I can't count the number of kids in 25 years I've seen step from death to life. I've had this front row seat and gotten to watch as the scales fall, as the chains get loosened, as their hearts get softened, as they're captured by the love of Jesus, and they're changed forever. We get to watch. And you would think it's about to say, and this huge party breaks out. But remember, it says they were afraid. And then this verse, maybe one of the saddest in the New Testament, and the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. Can you imagine a culture that would want to send Jesus away? Can you imagine a culture that would choose economics over people? 2,000 pigs, that's a lot of money. Can you imagine a culture that would value animals more than human life? Of course we can. We live in one. It's a culture kids are being raised in today. But the value of one life was proven by God on the cross. The value of one life can make an incredible difference. Watch what happens at the end of the story. Jesus was getting into the boat. The man who'd been demon-possessed begged to go with him. You see, he knew who he was. And Jesus did not let him go, and he said, "Go home to your family. Tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you." So the man went away. He began to tell on the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. The impact of one life, a short trip where nobody wanted to go to meet a man nobody wanted to meet, to be told, "We don't want you here. But it was worth the trip because of one life. One life can make a huge difference. Yours can too. It was true for Adam, not the first Adam, but Adam, a high school boy this year. He came to Young Life every week. It was always a surprise to the people at his high school because Adam didn't fit with them. Adam had drug and alcohol problems that were obvious. Adam was a loner. Adam had a horrible family life. He came to Young Life because his Young Life leader knew his name and built a relationship and knew his story. It was the middle of the week, and the Young Life staff person's phone rang, and he answered it, and he couldn't hear anybody on the other line except sobbing and crying. And someone trying to talk, and they couldn't talk, and he realized it's Adam. He recognized it, even through the sobbing. Adam, where are you? Just sobbing and crying. Adam, where are you? Finally, he got out these words. I'm at the corner. And he gave an intersection in one of the wealthiest parts of town. It'd be like saying Mockingbird Lane and some street in Highland Park. I'm at this intersection, and I'm about to kill myself. Adam, wait, I'm on my way. On the phone, he raced the intersection. He said it's in the middle of this wealthy community, and cars are all backed up. It's a busy intersection, and there's Adam's pickup truck. You can see it kind of vibrating because he's in the front seat sobbing uncontrollably. He goes to the car, his window's down just about this much. He said it was enough for me to get my head in. So I stuck in my head, and I got my right arm in. And I squeezed in, and I was able to reach over to Adam and pull him to me, and he didn't resist. He just fell into me, and his cheek was against my cheek. And he said, Adam, do you trust me? Just sobbing. Adam, do you trust me? Finally, he got a nod, and he thought it's safe to ask this next question. Adam, could you roll the window down just a little bit more? He rolled it down. He said now he could get his whole upper body inside, and he reached in and he grabbed Adam and he pulled him to him and he just sobbed. Adam, do you trust me? He nodded. Then come with me. He got out of the truck. He put him in his car. He took him to the nearest hospital. They put him in an ambulance, took him straight to a drug alcohol rehab place. He rode with him in the ambulance. It was about 4 days later, his phone rang. I didn't have to ask who it was. He said, this is Adam. Just want you to know, I just gave my heart and life to Jesus Christ. I wanted you to be the first to know. It's been our privilege for 63 years to watch God, through the person and love of Jesus, touch the lives and hearts of kids all over the world. One life can make a difference. But there are far too many kids who are at crossroads today. And they're wondering, is anybody going to show up? We have to keep going. Please come join us. We want to go. We want to build a relationship. We want to get to know them. We want to know their story, know their name, earn their trust, and say, would you come with me? Do you trust me? Then come with me. And we want to take them to the feet of Jesus and watch them be changed forever, and watch their family be changed, and watch the cities around them be changed. It was a quick trip, but it was worth it. I read your mission statement, and it says, one of the goals of Dallas Theological Seminary is to produce graduates who will do the work of evangelism. If that stirs in you and you think, that's me, I can't wait to tell people about Jesus. And the people you think of most are middle school and high school kids. Come join us. Think about being on our staff. Think about being a volunteer. Think about being a pastor who partners with Young Life. We're not trying to be a substitute for the church. We can't be. We don't want to be. We have this short season, this little window to touch and influence kids, and if we don't connect them to a church for their lifetimes, they won't make it. Our mission purpose, introduce kids, adolescents to Jesus Christ and help them grow in their faith. We cannot apart from the church. Come join us. Some of you, even as students right now, are volunteers with Young Life here in Dallas. You could do that. Come to the Brown Bag, find out more. I'm so grateful for the history we've had with you all these years. I'm grateful for the history we'll have in the years ahead, that God will continue to touch the hearts and lives of kids, introduce them to His Son, Jesus Christ, the answer to all their questions. Thank you so much.